Good evening, everyone. It's Christmas Eve, day 24, Kensington Wine Market 2022 whiskey calendar. I'm joined by our friend Dave Worthington, brand ambassador for That Boutique-y Whisky Company, to talk about the last of the 5 That Boutique-y Whisky Company whiskeys in our calendar this year. And we've got a cool one to tell you about. It's 24-year-old Campbellton Malt. It's labeled as a blended malt, but it might be something heavily from one particular distillery. And we'll get to that in a moment. But for now, hopefully you've got a glass of 24-year-old Campbellton Malt in front of you. Dave, tell us about what we've got here.
Well, we didn't put Campbelltown on there at all on our label. You'll notice it says "Welcome to Souptown," which is so this is blended malt number 6. It is a vatted malt whiskey in the olden days, 24 years old, 48.8% ABV. It is a blend. It's not as close as a teaspoon whiskey. It is but there is a dominant malt in here, that's for sure. You can taste that. We bought it pre-blended. It was found in or offered to us in cask pre-blended. So it's not a teaspooned malt, which we've talked about before. We've certainly talked about in a couple of our tastings, teaspoon. This is an actual blend. And so there are 2 whiskies in here as far as we're aware, but there is a dominant as we can get through here. Now, our label is where it all comes through. And so I'm just going to share our screen. It's where we want to get to. Where am I doing? There it is. I'm going to share that one there. So, as I said, it's not a teaspooned malt, and therefore our teaspoon, as you've seen on our teaspoon labels, really doesn't appear on there. It is a blend of 2 distilleries, but I'm definitely think there's a dominant malt in here. The clues to the 2 distilleries are all on this label. I mentioned Souptown. Now, my first thought was Souptown, and I was thinking of Scottish and not Campbell's soup. I was thinking of there's a soup Baxter's in Speyside. So I was immediately drawn to Speyside initially when I saw the label. Is it a Speyside whiskey? Because Scottish soup manufacturers is Baxter's, and some of my favourite tin soup. They make a Cullen skink tin soup, and it's just delicious. But no, it is Campbell's soup. It really does fit the bill, so that makes it a Campbelltown, as we've done. And then there's a couple of little shops on here. We've got Glen Coacher taxis. Glen Coacher sounds a little bit like Glen Scotia. And then we've got Highland Blooms. Highland Blooms, maybe a measure of, Highland, just a little bit of a measure of a Highland whiskey. And the Bonnie Bank is on the end there. Bonnie Bank, BBB, Bonnie Bank of Loch Lomond. So yes, it is a blend of Glen Scotia and a measure of Loch Lomond. How that happens, we don't know. But those 2 distilleries are now owned by the same people. And it really does come across as that.
Mm-hmm. It has that Campbellton funk, that little bit of dirtiness to it. Dave, I like to classify Glen Scotias in 3 classes. You've got your light, clean, fresh engine oil. You've got your engine oil halfway between fresh and an oil change. And then you've got your dirty engine oil, Glen Scotia. And sometimes you're adding peat in there, sometimes you're not. But that viscosity that's there, that little bit of a funkiness, there's a nice cheesy funk in there too. And I don't know, for engine oil this time, I'm going to say this is kind of halfway in between. It's not clean and it's not dirty, but it's somewhere in the middle.
There's somewhere in the middle there. There's lots of, it's sort of nutty and cherry. And I just had a little sip and I got that black cherry, which I was thinking I was getting on the nose. Sort of a chocolatey almost.
Yeah, the palate's got a nice balance of both what I would think of as ex-bourbon notes, but also potentially some sherry seasoned notes in there too. You've got this lovely creamy base of vanilla, soft floral tones, nutty and white fruits, but then you've also got some chocolate, spices, and a little bit of darker fruits on there too.
Yeah, it's a lovely little color in there. Nice bit of.
Now, Dave, we haven't talked about this because I think we just assume people know, but like boutique whiskey doesn't add color to their whiskeys. So if you're seeing some nice color like this coming through, that's natural color from the cask.
No, we don't add any colouring to our whiskies ever. Not saying that if this cask had been coloured, we wouldn't know. But no, we don't add colour. We don't chill filter because we don't own one, and so it goes for an old sock before. No, it doesn't go for an old sock, but it goes for a filter, but it's not chill filtered. It goes for just to cut the big bits out, and you will see on some of our bottlings, certainly on the older woodier ones, you will get some sediment come out occasionally, and because the filter won't take that thing out. So no, we don't colour it, and it is always natural colour. This is delicious. I mean, it really is delicious.
It's got a lovely profile to it. People will be happy to know we do have a surplus of minis from this because we always order more than we have calendars just to be safe. But more importantly, we have full-size bottles. Now, the minis say batch 2, the bottles say batch 1, but Dave, you were telling me before we got started here, that is the exact same liquid.
It is the exact same liquid because when you asked for this in the calendar, we had a stock of bottles in the UK that were all in 375s that were destined for the US market. And so we pulled them. They were in the US, in the UK already. They were in our warehouses under bond. And so we thought, well, we could pull them and just rebottle them into 5s rather than, because we can't sell them over here. And we'd use them that way. But yes, it was split between a lot of the US batches, not all of them, but a lot of the US batches were a separate batch from the UK batches or the European batches or the 500ml batches, really because they were in a different size bottle.
Yeah, fascinating.
And they were often the same, the same liquid, exactly the same liquid. We did do a few US exclusives over the years, but generally we'd split. And some of the batches were very, very small for the US, and just a small number of 375s were done for the US market. But these were sitting in our warehouse, not going anywhere. And so we thought we'd use them up on your 5s for your calendar this year.
Well, we appreciate that because it's definitely an opportunity to highlight what I feel is a really cool whiskey. One that I think because that word blended gets mixed in there, some people sometimes are scared off by it, for better or worse. But what you have here is a very old fusion of Glen Scotia and Loch Lomond, and it's a lovely concoction, whether it was created intentionally or just acquired and happened to be delicious, so it got bottled. It's a serendipitously tasty whiskey. Dave, one last comment about the label, which I love. You can see those planes taking off or landing. They look a little bit like either World War II or Cold War era aircraft. One of the cool things about Campbellton is they have one of the largest runways, I think, in the world near the town of Campbellton.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that was the other thing that was confusing me because I was straight on to Baxter's for the soup town, and Baxter's is in Speyside, and there is a great airbase in Lossiemouth as well. So, and it's a US airbase, and you can see if like pilots there that have the planes on the jacket, and I think, oh, is that a US? But there was a US base in Campbelltown as well. So yes. It's only when you start looking at Glencocha, Highland Blooms, and Bonnie Bank, and then no, it's not Speyside, it's Campbelltown.
Yeah. Well, and I think I'm correct in remembering this from the news, but at one point, I think Campbellton was in the running to potentially be a spaceport in the UK because of this large runway that they have. But I could be misremembering that. Well, Dave, this is a lovely whiskey, and it's a lovely whiskey to end. Almost end the whiskey advent journey for 2022, but we always have our bonus Christmas Day bottling, which is from the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society. But this is the last of our 50 mils in this year's whiskey calendar. And Dave, tomorrow is Christmas Day. I think I'd like to wish you a very Merry Christmas. Thank you for and thank you for doing tastings with us throughout the year, but also for recording some content for our whiskey calendar this year. And I want to wish you and everybody at Boutique-y Whisky a wonderful, safe, and happy 2023. And to everyone watching who took part in our whiskey calendar as well. I hope you all have a Merry Christmas and a happy New Year.
Have a wonderful holiday and a really successful, happy and healthy and prosperous new year.
Indeed. Well, Dave, thank you again. And I'm sure we'll be chatting at some point in the new year. But until then, all the best.
So. Cheers.
Cheers.
Sanjay.
Slange.